Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about Cloudflare WARP. What is Cloudflare WARP? Is it a replacement for your standard VPN solution, or is it something more advanced? Well, let's get into it. Cloudflare WARP, it's part of Cloudflare Zero Trust platform. Now, Cloudflare WARP, it's a piece of software you install on your endpoint device. It's a client for Windows or macOS or Linux, iPhone or Android. And that client now will connect a VPN connection, will set up a VPN connection, will create a VPN tunnel to the Cloudflare network. So when you have that VPN connection running through the Cloudflare network, Cloudflare can do some very intelligent things, like keep checking what the quality of service is on that VPN connection and making sure that access to the internet from your device is fast, reliable, and performant. Right? They keep measuring that and they can route the traffic as needed through their own network. So the Cloudflare WARP client allows you to protect corporate devices by securely and privately sending traffic from those devices to Cloudflare's global network. So this feature is mainly used by corporate devices because those corporate devices, you want to protect them, you want to secure them, and you want to make sure that when those devices connect to the internet, they are only allowed to connect to secure and safe websites, services, or applications. You don't want an endpoint device connecting to a malicious network, right? And now when you're using Cloudflare WARP, using advanced web filtering, you can achieve that for all those endpoint devices which are using Cloudflare WARP. And as you can see here, there are a few ways in which the WARP client provides in-depth protection for your organization. Using those security policies, you can define beforehand, before deploying or enrolling those devices with the WARP client. And of course, HTTP filtering or policies as well. You can also have in-depth application-specific insights. And now you're able to route traffic through different parts of the Cloudflare network or to different services, to different applications you're using, for instance, in the cloud. And make sure that the connections from those devices to those cloud services is always reliable and performant. And of course, Cloudflare WARP, is it free or not? Well, Cloudflare WARP in basic, it's free. It's free to use because Cloudflare, well, they specialize in providing a free tier or free versions of all kinds of technologies they are using. And of course, if you pay for Cloudflare WARP, if you have the Cloudflare WARP Plus edition, that's the paid version, well, then you have even more options there and no limitations for bandwidth caps, etc. Right? As you can see here, what's the difference? Well, the free services, you can use 1.1.1.1. That's the secure DNS using HTTP or TLS, HTTPS or TLS, of course. And WARP, of course, you can still encrypt those DNS requests, but then make sure that all the traffic which is leaving that endpoint device on your network is encrypted. In your data centers, it's encrypted. That's that WARP part. Now, WARP Plus uses that advanced Cloudflare network, that Argo Smart Routing feature within Cloudflare's network, and it makes sure that the user experience from those end user devices always is the same, always is performant, and always is stable to the internet, regardless if there are outages or traffic jams on the internet somewhere. It will take care of that and it will route the traffic so the user experience doesn't suffer. As always, I will leave the links to these articles in the description below. You can also read it on my blog, vikash.nl. Let me show you how to install that WARP client on Windows 11 and how to set it up. So just download the Cloudflare WARP release for x64. This is an x64 machine, Windows machine. And let me go through the install steps. Double click it. Let me minimize the window at the back. And just follow the steps to install the client. It will ask for user account control, elevation of course. Click on yes and let it do its thing. Well, and that's that. As you can see here, I already have a pop-up on the right bottom where Cloudflare WARP client is already started. Let me click finish here. And now the Cloudflare WARP client is installed on my Windows 11 machine. That's it. Easy as that. Now, let me see if I click on that icon on the taskbar, the Cloudflare WARP client, you can see it's giving me a short introduction. What is WARP? Click on next, and then basically you have to accept the privacy policy as well. When you click it, you will see it's registering, and when the registration is done, it will say, well, everything is ready. It's disconnected now. When I click on this switch, it will then engage the VPN connection. It will then start up the VPN tunnel. Now, before I connect the tunnel, before I start the tunnel, let's see what my IP address is here. At the moment, this is my IP address I got from my ISP. It's somewhere in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, basically. And as you can see here, the ISP is not Cloudflare, right? So now I have made sure that my tunnel is not running and I'm just using my ISP for my internet connection, and I will go on and start that tunnel. Click on connect. It's connecting, setting up that secure connection. Now, basically, Cloudflare WARP is connected. My internet is private. Privacy is also very important here because now no one can see the traffic between my Windows 11 machine and the internet. Very important. So if I go back to that same website and now refresh to check what my IP address is, then I can see immediately that my IP4 is changed. It's now an IP address from the Cloudflare network. And as you can see as well, this is Cloudflare running from Amsterdam, the Cloudflare network basically. So now I know that my tunnel is working fine. Now let's look at some advanced settings of that client. If I click on that client, I can click on that settings wheel and click on preferences. When I click on preferences, I see my connectivity information. It's connected to that WARP infrastructure. DNS is also fully encrypted in this VPN tunnel in my case. And there are some settings here you will need if you have the paid version of WARP and you're using device enrollment policies or MDM access policies. Basically enterprise features. I'm not using that. I'm just using the free version. If I click on connection, this is the interesting part because this connection tab, I can tell the WARP client to exclude some networks here. For example, if I'm at home and I'm on my own Wi-Fi network or in my own wired network, I can tell Cloud not to engage, not to start up because I'm in my protected home network. But if you're in a public network or public Wi-Fi, it will see it and then it will automatically connect. So this is to just tell WARP client how to make a difference between what networks are protected and what networks you basically trust, and all the other networks, keep them untrusted and start the WARP client when I'm on it. Of course, you have the account option. Again, these are this is some information you will need when you have the paid version, and also log in with the Cloudflare Zero Trust. Well, basically, this is the part where you need to set up some information to connect to Cloudflare Access with corporate settings, right? I don't have it, so I will skip that. Let's go back to the preferences, and of course you can give some feedback, and in the connectivity tab you can see which items, which components are connected from this client and what is the latency in your network and how much data has been transferred. So this is very handy to see. As you scroll down, you can see that there are more options here. Let me scroll down a little bit. You can see the packet loss here, for example, latency to DNS connectivity. And of course, if there are service interruptions, you can check it there. In the advanced, you can also click on a very important part, that's split tunneling, because if you click on it, you can now tell Cloudflare a WARP client that if your IP address is on one of these networks, basically don't route the traffic to these IP addresses, to these subnets using the client tunnel, using that VPN tunnel. Everything else, just throw it in the tunnel. But if I, for example, want to access something on this network, it doesn't need to go through that tunnel. This is where you set up split tunneling in this client as well. So as you can see here, the Windows client is pretty advanced. There are a lot of options you can set up there, and make sure that this Windows device now can connect securely to the internet. Let's move over to my iPhone and I will show you how the client is working from an iPhone. Install that 1.1.1 application from the Apple App Store and make sure you have it on your iPhone. This is the application from Cloudflare you're going to use. Start the application, click on Next, click on Accept for the privacy commitment, and then click on Install VPN Profile. Click on Allow. Enter your iPhone's passcode and let it install the profile. And also click on Allow Notifications to keep up to date what's happening with the WARP client. And now WARP client on iPhone is installed. Before starting the VPN tunnel, let's check my IP address. As I can see, this is the IP address I have at the moment. Let's go back to the WARP client and start the tunnel. The tunnel is connected. You can see my internet is private now. So that's very good. When we go back to the check my IP address, I can see that I have IP addresses from Cloudflare and my ISP is Cloudflare. So the VPN tunnel, Cloudflare WARP is working. Let's check out some advanced settings. Click on the hamburger menu on the top right side, pull up the advanced settings, and then you can click on the connection options. You can see you have also the trusted and untrusted cellular Wi-Fi networks here. You can enable that. Also, if you click on DNS settings, you can see which of the DNS servers is actually using. You can, of course, select a different DNS server and it will have different levels of protection from Cloudflare WARP. And then also you can enable DNS over HTTPS or DNS over TLS, of course. Now, if you click on the split tunnels, excluded routes, you can basically tell it which of the networks you want to reach locally and not via the tunnel. It will set it up as well. Again, there are a lot of options here in the client for iOS. The options are on par with the desktop client as well. So you can set them up to fit your need. Cloudflare WARP. I think it's a good replacement for just a basic VPN, right? Because now you have that WARP client sitting on your mobile device. It's very lightweight and also so it's very friendly on the battery usage as well. If we're talking about mobile devices, of course. And at the same time, it is keeping that connection to the internet to the corporate application you're using. It's keeping that connection secure, reliable, and performant. So those are, I think, very important arguments to make in switching over to that Cloudflare WARP client, to that Cloudflare Zero Trust platform, making use of that WARP client. Of course, if you're using it in a corporate environment, make sure that you check those links I posted in the description, because those links will tell you and give you a lot more information in how to apply like advanced enrollment policies or provisioning policies or access protection and routing, etc. There is a lot you can do from a corporate standpoint if you're using Cloudflare WARP in keeping all that data, all that corporate data applications secure, reliable. Now, besides that reliability and that connection performance and keeping that data secure between that endpoint device and your applications you're consuming, well, there is another aspect which is very important, I think, and that's privacy. Because when using Cloudflare WARP, that client makes sure that no one else can see the traffic between your endpoint device and your applications or your internet traffic you're generating. Well, that's very important, right? Because when you're in a public place, a public Wi-Fi, you don't want anyone else getting between your end device, your user device, and that application you're using, and they be able to sniff the traffic. So besides keeping that data secure, that information and the device securely connected to the internet, Cloudflare WARP also makes sure that that connection information and all the traffic between your device and the internet is also private. There is no one else who can pry in between, which is very important nowadays. That's it for now. I'm sure that there are a lot of more features we can talk about, and make sure to check the links I have posted in the description as well, and to see if there is something in there you can use, especially if you're in a corporate environment, of course. And like always, don't forget to give the videos a like and a thumbs up. And I'll see you soon again. Bye.